All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Mondays Down South coming at you. We were just talking about how fast the season is flying by, and we're already in week 12 here of the NFL. The playoff picture is becoming more clear. We're approaching fantasy playoffs. All the good stuff here as we wind down the fantasy season and approach the holiday season. So I'll kick it to the usual guys here ahead of this week's episode.
Zebo, go ahead, man.
Yo, what's up, guys? Good to be back. Another week. And I have a lot of thoughts on Kyler Murray, man. Kyler Murray has been a complete stud right from the jump. Just wanted to give him a little shout out. Evans mentioned the Cardinals. Sai and I disagreed. At one point, I thought the Rams are going to win it. Sai has always been a big proponent of the 49ers, but we should give little Kyler Murray and company some love. Their roster hasn't changed too much necessarily. I mean, they got Marvin Harrison Jr., a rookie, and Michael Wilson, a couple guys, but like James Conner's just 1 year older and slower. I mean, Kyler is the one that's picking up the pieces and making this offense move and shake. So shout out to him. I mean, you could argue he's the biggest playmaker in the NFL right now based on the talent around him. So shout out Kyler Murray. I know that surprised me saying that, but Sal, I'll kick it over your direction.
I respect you. Have me double checking the scores. I respect you giving him a shout out on the bye week, man. I guess especially with San Francisco going down, it makes them even like. I appreciate your timing, is what I'm saying. Like I love that we're not taking it right after. Like I like that you're doing it after San Francisco goes down. It's smart because I think I agree with you.
Time makes the heart grow fonder, Si.
You're right. No, you're right. I was over here
it took me the bye week to realize that, Evan.
I thought I missed the game, but no, that's very that's a very good point. Genuinely though, like Evan was spot on. Like the thing is, like obviously gets a lot of credit, but the reality is I'm more impressed with Jonathan Gannon, who I gave no credit to when they hired him, and what he's done with that team in the context of like making them viable on both fronts. When he took over, that defense was not good. Like I mean, nobody was afraid of the Cardinals defense a year or two ago, but they are playing very well, and he was. You know, he came from a team where he was the defensive guy, and clearly he's having an impact on that front, even without like the big names you think of. Most people couldn't name you more than like two guys on the Cardinals defense as far as casual fans go. Offensively, you're right, Zach. Like not massive differences, but like guys like James Conner, who you would expect to regress as they get older, has looked better than he's ever looked. You got you got guys like Michael Wilson and them make contributions. And I love my boy Trey McBride, who has been my like number one asset in every fantasy league. I have him in like I think 90% of my leagues. I love that man. He's so good. And obviously MHJ and you got Kyler. So it's a team effort, but I do appreciate that shout out. That was good. I think they deserve that. Appreciate that.
I think I know why it's on your brain, maybe Zach, because did you happen to catch where Kyler Murray spent his bye week this week?
No, where was he?
UFC 309. He was in New York. Yeah, they showed him on the shot. There's a funny video going on Twitter of him, like some random guy that maybe is an influencer, like trying to be, that was like eating pizza and like sharing a table with Kyler Murray or something, and he was just chatting with him, not knowing it was Kyler Murray, and he was like, "Yeah, just in town in New York," or blah blah blah, just chit chatting. It's a funny video going around, but yeah, he was at 309. So segue into getting your thoughts on the fights. If you have any feedback off that. Oh, yes, I watched too. Yeah.
I'm going to go first because I actually watched. So I want to jump in on some UFC content for once. All right. I am so annoyed that this card happened the same weekend as Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. First of all, shout out to the women's match before Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. That was maybe the best fight of the weekend, period. Like, including
that was amazing.
Truly like special. I think the woman who lost got robbed. I agree with Evan. I feel like that was totally unfair to her, but amazing fight. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul was just bad. Like just bad. I'm happy that Mike Tyson got to go in the ring again, but I agree with Evan. Maybe there was some element of it being staged, people pulling punches. Moving on. The UFC card, I actually was able to catch the main event, and I'm teeing it up because obviously you guys are going to have better analysis than I am, but my gosh, these guys are like John Bones Jones being in his late 30s, and then you got the guy at 43. I did not recognize he was fighting at 43, but he shouldn't be fighting at 43 because he got absolutely decimated. Even as like someone who doesn't watch UFC a lot, like you could just tell the dominance from the other like side of things. And I was just shocked because it's a hard reminder sometimes that like these guys are like pretty old and to be in an octagon, and yet look so spry. I mean, JBJ looked like he was like 25, bro. Like he was moving around like it was nobody's business. It was so impressive. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But and I also want to know why they won't let him and Pereira fight. I want to know you like your guys' take on that, because I don't know enough about that, but I'm hearing all this Dana stuff about how he won't let that happen. And I've seen Pereira, and Pereira is a dog, and I think he actually has a chance to win that fight from what I've seen. So I want to get all your takes on that. So just teeing it up.
Yep. Zach, what you got? Oh, I can go first. What do I got? Yes, quickly on the boxing. Yeah, good shout out. Both of those undercard fights were really good. But that fight went exactly as expected. I'm a little disappointed New York State didn't let me bet that fight, because that was probably, I think that was probably like top 3 easiest bets I've ever seen. Up there with Bronny James under 0.5 points in his NBA debut from this year. But yeah, and then UFC, I mean, Michael Chandler got decimated for 4 rounds, but I did want to shout him out for an incredible 5th round. You were never disappointed after a Michael Chandler fight, even after 4 rounds of getting torched. And then he's just getting up and carrying Charles Oliveira like a backpack and dropping him. Oh my gosh, it was so fun. But yeah, Oliveira is still so good, even at his age and his kind of upper 30s. Yeah. He's honestly unbelievable. But shout out Chandler for the entertainment value. And then, yeah, John Bones Jones. I mean, the one thing I'll say about Stipe, he looked really slow. And Dana White said this in his presser afterwards. Now, Dana White always has crazy John Jones goggles on, but like after some of those early leg kicks, it's going to make anyone look way slower than they actually are. So, Stipe came in great shape. Now, granted, he I think still was a step slower than in his prime, obviously, but like you take a couple of those leg kicks and whatnot, and man, that's going to slow down anyone. So, and that one that put him out is just absurd. Like a kick to the ribs like that. I mean, come on. So yeah, kind of went as expected. I think that card, not too much other drama. Bo Nickel was a little disappointing, I thought, in the 3rd fight, but yeah. It's kind of mine.
Well, first of all, I'm really impressed with both of y'all's acumen on UFC, especially Cy here. I mean, that was a great take and a great transition. So I'll give you some kudos, man.
Sure.
In regards to the fights, Evan is exactly right. The kicks are going to take you out quick, right? Like you can't move like you typically move when you start taking like calf kicks and like the kicks to the knee, which John Jones is infamous for doing. I mean, he is a juggernaut. He will literally hit you from every different angle, and before you know it, the fight's over. And obviously Stipe is not used to kicks in the heavyweight division. That's what makes John Jones so dangerous, is he's a light heavyweight by nature. And because he's so long, he's 6'4", but he still came in at like 230 pounds, gained weight the right way. It took him 3 years to do it. I mean, he still fights like he's a 205-pound guy, and that's what's so dangerous. These heavyweights have no idea how to stay in the ring with him when they're taking body kicks. Like usually they're just headhunting at that point. And you could argue that Aspinall is a headhunter as well. So without getting too far into the future matchups like the Aspinall and the Jones fight and stuff like that, one thing I do want to critique Dana White for is the lack of marketing on Stipe Miocic's side. Now, everything proved to be, and I agree with Evan, that fight was minus 200 odds for John Jones. That was a easy bet. Almost as easy as Dave Portnoy's prediction of Jake Paul clean sweeping over Mike Tyson, minus 200 odds. But let me tell you why I critique Dana White here. He's got to get his marketing team under check, because Stipe Miocic was like a sacrificial lamb throughout the entire week. I mean, just like, he was going to get bludgeoned. It was John Jones is the pound for pound best guy ever. And he obviously proved that victory. Hats off to John Jones. But this has been a glaring hole in Stipe Miocic's brand management. He's had a poor relationship with the UFC for a long time. This is one of the best heavyweights to ever compete in the division. And he just has never received this proper marketing. I know it's like a catch-22 because John Jones did indeed win, and he won in victorious fashion with a knockout. But Stipe Miocic was treated as a sacrificial lamb. This entire fight camp, the entire marketing behind it, whether it's the UFC embedded, the UFC countdown videos, and I do feel bad for the guy, and you can sense his disgruntledness with the UFC. He just casually retired, didn't even take his gloves off and lay them in the octagon. He just walked out. And I feel like that's exactly how he's felt this whole week.
Do you guys think that, like, honestly speaking, it's a conversation that comes up a lot, but I know that he's had massive breaks with the steroids and everything else that people have thrown out there. Do you believe he's the best you guys have ever seen in any weight class?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's probably not fair for me to make tons of comment because I've only been watching the UFC for a few years, but I mean, this guy's unbelievable from what I've seen. I will say, the one fight, I always forget who he fought.
You're thinking of Dominic Reyes or Alexander
Dominic Reyes, right? It was Reyes, where Reyes, I thought not clearly, but I thought he won that fight. But nonetheless, I mean, John Jones is definitely the best I've seen. Up there with Prime Usman. Pereira's getting close, like those types of guys. But to your point about, sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, that's what I was asking because like he's clearly unbelievable. I mean, I remember watching him like 10 years ago when I was in college and in fights like with my roommates, like asking them, like used to love watching him fight. But one thing that I'm curious about is I feel like when we watched that Pereira fight together, Evan, that guy looked borderline unbeatable as well, right? And like obviously, like John Bones has like spanned generations of greatness. Like he's been doing it for so long and has obviously been winning. Even as someone who doesn't watch as much UFC as you guys, we can recognize that as even casual fans. But Pereira, to my untrained eye, looked unbelievably great. So in my mind, I'm like, especially if you're telling me they're in similar age ranges, like, why do you guys think it is that Dana wouldn't have them fight when it would truly be like, I get the feeling it would be such a blockbuster card. Y'all tell me. I would think it would be like one of the biggest fights in the past like 5 to 10 years, right? Like just given the dominance of both of them.
Yeah, it's a great question, Cy, and you know that would do blockbuster numbers. And therefore it's very shocking that Dana White just comes out abruptly without talking to any leadership in the press conference saying Aspinall is the next one up. And that was one of the popular questions during the pre-fight activities. But let me tell you why it would be a bad matchup. John Jones would absolutely obliterate Alex Pereira. And it's not necessarily because he's better on the feet. I mean, Alex Pereira has, you could argue, more stand-up knockouts than John Jones does from a variety of positions. I mean, his most recent one against Jiri, he has like a left head kick, which was insane considering he's an orthodox fighter, not a southpaw. But the problem is that John Jones's elite wrestling, American wrestling, would grapple Alex Pereira so fast in the first round, the fight would be over. That's my perspective. I'm curious to get to y'all's, especially Evan's here too, with him watching both fighters for a long time. But I think that John Jones would win in the first round via submission against Alex Pereira, whereas Tom Aspinall will weigh more than John Jones. And so you're going to see a similar style fight that you saw this last one where John is on the feet more and trying to strategically take him down. Ev, what do you think?
Yeah, my kind of opinion was more closer to size as more of a novice relative to most people out there. And then Dana said the issue was size. I think he referenced, which like obviously currently there's a big size gap, right? But John Jones, most of his career, right, was fought at light heavyweight. So you would think the size would line up better. So here's what I think is going to happen. Because Dana also said, like, if they want it that bad, I'll make it happen, right? And obviously, I think that's the only one person that John really wants to fight right now. And Pereira says yes to everyone. Like, that dude's just a dog, man. He just fights. But I think, and I know John doesn't want to fight Aspinall at all. And I don't totally blame him because I don't think there's a ton of upside for John with what he's accomplished in his career. Aspinall's not a big name. He's an up-and-coming name. He's not a big name. Like, and if he loses, it like doesn't look good for John. But I think Dana will convince John to fight Aspinall. I think, maybe a tricky matchup, but I think John will take care of him. And then, for the money. And then, but Dana will say, and then after that, you can if you're able to go back down to light heavyweight, I don't know if maybe he's just more natural heavyweight at this point in his career or what, and you can go back down to light heavyweight to fight at Pereira, or if Pereira can go up, I don't know how that looks for each of those fighters, but then they'll make that fight happen, and that might be the last fight of his career.
Oh,
but
I could see that.
I think he needs to finish up heavyweight first. Unless there's an Ngannou in the future, crossing over different companies, but I don't know who else is out there left for John, but I think Dana might make him clean up Tom Aspinall first.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll ask, I know we got to jump to NFL, but is there some element of like with the UFC, with it being such a promotion heavy business, do you think there's an element of like him trying to protect both those fighters for as long as he can so that they can still like be like main eventers to the same level? Like, for example, let's say you're right, Zach. Let's say Alex Pereira was to fight John Bones Jones and JBJ just destroys him. Like, let's say he beats him in the first round. It's not even close. Then maybe it makes Alex Pereira not look as lethal as it did before. And then you don't get as much like hype or as much, credibility around the main event. If Pereira was the main event, something else, maybe that's part of it. I'm assuming just from a marketing standpoint too.
I think so. I think that's a great point because, like, especially with the consistency that Pereira shows up with, like, he's such a moneymaker for Dana because his pay-per-views are huge and he fights like every 3 months, 3 to 6 months. Once you make that mega fight, it's probably hard to, consistently roll out Pereira against lesser names like you can now. So I think that's why it's like for each of them, it's probably kind of at the end of their careers and one of their last fights that you just kind of blow it out on. So.
Yeah, I like that roadmap. Although I think John Jones's preferred roadmap would be Pereira and then Aspinall if Aspinall continues to win. Here's the problem is John Jones is 237 pounds, taking 250-ish pound guys down easily. I mean, Cyril Gane was a good example of that. He was like double the size of John Jones. John Jones actually came in heavy for that weight, like 240. But when he fought Stipe, he was like 13 or 14 pounds lighter. And with Aspinall, he's going to be like 20 pounds lighter. And John Jones will still be favored in that fight. And so when you think of his ability to take down these massive heavyweight juggernauts, and then you've got this Alex Pereira character who, is notorious for weighing, 229 pounds after, the 24 hours after he weighs in at 205 for light heavyweight. And a guy who also made 185. I mean, this guy his walking weight is like 230. I mean, he's going to get completely decimated and controlled just from a strength, a grappling, a grip strength, like wrestling maneuver, jiu-jitsu. Alex Pereira is a kickboxer by nature. And once John closes that distance, it's going to be a bad night for him. So I think that's what's going to happen.
You know better than me, Zach, but I watched Alex Pereira fight once with Evan. And I told Evan every single time this guy fights, I need you to let me know because I want to watch him fight.
He's awesome.
He's the best, man.
Even as a guy who's not like a UFC guy through and through, like watching him fight, I was like, I want to watch him fight forever. So some part of me just hopes with the untrained eye that like maybe he'll give him more of a run for his money than we think. But obviously JBJ is a lot bigger, so it'll be interesting. But I hope it happens because even as a casual fan, I want it so bad. Like. This is the kind of people you'll pull in, Dana, if you make this fight happen. The ones that don't show up for it. Yeah.
He says one word too, Si, just chama. And then he gets in the ring, chama. It's like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm about to get my ass whooped.
I mean, hey, we can jump from one Jones's sport to the other Jones's sport and move on over to the NFL. You already talked about the Cardinals, so maybe a little Chandler Jones shout out there too. Your brother's a dog, man. Because both brothers are dogs. With that being said, NFL week 11, crazy. I was joking with these guys. I opened it and I was like, oh yeah, we're on week 9, right? And they're like, bro, we're going into week 12. And I was like, this is ridiculous. This season is flying by. We're getting old, guys. Time's moving quickly. Matchups. I think we could start with yours first, Evan, because it was a Thursday night one. Obviously, Commanders been great all year. Eagles started a little shaky with the injuries, but they're starting to look really good. This felt like a matchup where the Eagles made a bit of a statement and were, obviously it was in their house, but I think they were trying to say, hey, like all those people that were sleeping on us early in the year based off last year, like we're not quite out of it. My quick take will be that it's funny because it didn't even feel like from what I was looking at or what I understood that Jalen even had that great of a game, but Saquon Barkley Saquon Barkley is unbelievable, bro. Like it's ridiculous how insane. He's running the ball and the guy still gets like 8 yards a carry. It's stupid how good he is. So I'll leave it at that, and then I'll let you comment. Let both of you guys comment, but definitely want Evan's take with his Commanders.
Yeah, it was the first game this year where the Commanders, I thought, like actually truly got like borderline dominated. Baltimore, they genuinely got beat as well, but this game they got manhandled a little bit. Whereas like the Pittsburgh game, I thought they beat themselves, but this game they truly got beat. I mean, this Eagles defensive line just absolutely abused our offensive line, which has played great all year. That was the biggest issue. I mean, the first half was close because Jalen was horrible. They kept Saquon in check. And then, the thing about Saquon, he really has been padding the stats late in games. So like early in games, he's just kind of been churning good 4 yards a carry. And then he just, as the defense gets tired and the Eagles offensive line starts dominating, you cannot keep up with his speed and his power. And he just completely abuses you late. And I mean, back-to-back losses, something's off with Jaden Daniels right now. Obviously that's the biggest, I think, concern. He's 100% healthy, as Quinn has said several times over the last few weeks. I think maybe the lack of practice time during the rib injury and the fact that they're like less willing to run him but he just feels out of rhythm to me. This is, I think, probably by far his worst game of his young career so far. So, hopefully this isn't a trend that the Commanders are coming back to, maybe preseason expectations, but luckily the schedule could not be easier. So I think we're going to see a rematch of this in about 3 or 4 weeks at FedEx Field. That is probably going to decide the division, assuming the Eagles can give one game back. So, we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But the Eagles definitely put a strong statement out there for this division, I think.
Zach, I got a question for you about this game. I agree with Evan's analysis. You're the corner guy. You're the defense guy. Specifically the cornerback guy of this podcast. You love talking about that. What do you think happened with Terry McLaurin this week? 1 reception, 10 yards?
Yeah, it reminds me of what the question with John Gruden getting hired by Barstool and asking all these different Barstool employees, like, how would you cover Travis Kelce? And fielding all these BS responses from these guys. I will also join and be like, I think what happened with the Terry McLaurin, essentially the Travis Kelce, Terry McLaurin, like the person you're trying to take out of the offense early to stifle rhythm, which is what happened, was just planting safety over top and having like their top corner cover him. So they pretty much had 2 guys on him. And essentially what that did is it was trusting like the young rookies in like the slot, like the Cooper DeJeans that go man and actually shut down the Commanders, like the, De'Ami Browns of the world. Yeah. And that's exactly what he did, because Cooper DeJean is an absolute stud in the corner in the slot. So that's pretty much what happened. And I am curious, Cy, as to see, all the future Commander opponents as they slip to 7-4 now, 2 straight losses. Are you going to see that replicated, this defensive scheme and style against the Washington Commanders and taking Terry out of the game early?
Okay, I'll come.
Interesting.
I think this can't be the first team that thought to themselves. I'm sure throughout the course of the season, there's plenty of teams that thought to themselves, "Hey, Terry is by far and away the best receiver on the Commanders. This is who we need to shut down." Right. So I'm sure teams have tried to do that, but not everyone's going to have the personnel and the ability to do that, because in order for your corners to hold up, you need a good pass rush, which is what Evan alluded to earlier. They were able to get home. It's not always easy to get home against quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels, because usually when they're right, they're elusive. It's really hard to sack them. And that's where guys like Terry, who are unguardable down the field, given their speed and their quickness in their routes, that's where they get open, right? Because your corner can cover them for the first 5 seconds, maybe, if you have a good corner. But no corner can cover a receiver for like 10, 15 seconds, right? That's when things like blow up and, your spy is having to run over and you got guys trying to collapse to take the quarterback away. And then guys like Terry make huge plays because Jaden can chuck it down the field to him. So I think that's easier said than done. But I think the good defenses, after seeing what the Eagles have done, will definitely try to mimic that. It's not going to be easy. Well, it's going to come down to how well does Jaden play going forward. But to be fair, like, I got to give Jaden a pass, though, because like it's his rookie year and he set the bar so high for himself that, like, yeah, sure, the last 2 weeks haven't been amazing, but he's playing 2 really good teams, like, who are clearly trending up. And, he's coming off having been hurt before. Like, you guys know me, I'm always going to give the rookie guys and the younger guys, not even just the rookies, like a little bit more time to like figure things out. And he's done more than enough to prove his worth of like how great of a rookie he is. So it's fine. He'll figure it out. Like it might not be next week, but by the end of the season, we'll see Jaden be Jaden again. I just think like it's hard. Plus, I think the Eagles just played really well. Like I genuinely like Evan talked about Saquon. Like at the end of the game, that's the kind of back like that is menacing, right? Like this is what I said about Derrick Henry at the beginning of the year with the Ravens. I was like, just keep running it with them. Like sure, at the beginning, it's not going to look as pretty. You're going to get like 3 to 4 yards of carry. But as the game progresses, these are the elite backs that when they get space, you can't stop them. And it's not like the Commander secondary is big. And the moment the second half started, it was game over. It's what he's done the whole year, as Evan alluded to. So it's just impressive. Like the Eagles look good, man. They really do. Like they are one of the only teams in the NFC that I could see giving the Lions some sort of trouble in the playoffs. I'm not saying they'll win, but they'll give them some trouble.
I think the Commanders are in trouble. I really do. I think that they're slipping back to mediocrity. I really do think so.
Evan, what do you think? I feel like you guys need a little bit more on. Obviously, we talked enough about your secondary. We'll see how Marshawn Lattimore does throughout the course of the season. I just made the Gamecock slip to Marcus Lattimore.
Yeah.
But what do you think of offensively? Do you think you have enough to like compete in the NFC playoffs with, like, for example, against a good defense when they take Terry away?
I think the wide receiver thing is the kind of like known issue you had to live with. Like you could only do so much at the deadline with that. So I'm shocked I haven't seen more like, top corner safety high on Terry, like just truly taking him out. Like Zach said, that's kind of shocking to me that they've kind of like given him more one-on-ones this year. So I think that's the way, and, force Jaden to throw it to Noah Brown and, Luke McCaffrey. It's like Luke McCaffrey can separate really well, but he can't catch for some reason. And Noah Brown just isn't really a separator. So I think, the schedule is so easy though. Like not even being biased, there's not a loss on that schedule until the next Philly game. Like it's true cupcakes. And then the only other game is like at home with Atlanta, who I think those two teams are pretty evenly matched. So, which, by the way, boys, is Christmas break. We should be there.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah. That'd be fun. But so I honestly think it's going to set up for another Eagles matchup because they play Baltimore, they play Pittsburgh. So I think they'll lose one. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, this team has, some known issues. Lattimore coming back will help a lot. He should be back this weekend. So, but they probably don't have enough to make a tons of noise, but
that's kind of a perfect segue though, Evan, because Atlanta's Evo, we just talked about them last week. And then this week predicted it. Worse, bro. Oh my gosh. I mean, my question to you guys is this more telling of like how much worse Atlanta is than we gave them credit for a few weeks ago? Or is this more telling of how much better the Broncos are than we have given them credit for most of the year? I know Evan has started to not necessarily jump on the bandwagon, but give the Broncos a bit more credit. This week definitely was a statement by them, but especially Sean Payton, who, has been Atlanta's menacing head coach that they've played against forever. He's continuing to do what he normally does against Atlanta. So I'm just curious to see what you guys think of that one. Because wow, when I just like tuned into that game, the most exciting part of that game was that Penix got some snaps. Like nothing else about that game was good.
Yeah, man, I think it's more of a product that Atlanta is worse than we thought than it is Denver being better than we thought. And I think the reason is that Atlanta has so many different offensive skill sets, and it's like you almost have too many mouths to feed. And so although we've seen Kyle Pitts improvements, and although Bijan has taken some strides forward, it's like in a weird way, we're seeing with the first-round picks their flaws. Like Drake London is not a CeeDee Lamb and cannot get open 20 yards down the field. He's effective on the goal line, and he's effective with like a 5 to 7 yard slot pattern. And I think Evan was the one that had introduced that concept earlier this season. So when you don't have a guy like that who consistently get downfield and catch the ball 20 yards out, then that becomes Darnell Mooney. And Darnell Mooney's been great this season. The problem is we have too many mouths to feed. There's too many playmakers, quote unquote playmakers. And it's like none of us are jiving. Nobody's actually working together. Whereas you have this Bo Nix, offense, rookie quarterback who was like the 5th rookie that was drafted in the NFL draft. But for one reason or the other, the offense is synchronized around him. And as a result, you're just seeing them flow better and move the ball a lot more consistently. I also know that the Denver Broncos defense is stepping up, Pat Surtain, that and company. And under Sean Payton that they're going to be well coached. So I just think it's like a product of mostly a product of Atlanta just trying to do too much with their offensive players, and they're just not functioning correctly. They're not flowing correctly. And I do fear that this is going to continue. I think Atlanta cannot beat the great team. They are the Los Angeles Chargers year over year. This is them. They have now entered the Chargers era.
It's funny because I guess when the Chargers leave the Chargers era, someone has to enter it, I guess.
Exactly.
That's kind of what's
That's a great point.
But I don't want to jump ahead on the Chargers because I'm pumped to talk about that game, but the Chargers did a lot of charging on Sunday Night Football.
But they won. The old Chargers would have found a way to lose that game. They did not. But we'll talk about that later.
Well, the Bengals did a lot of bungling too, so they're known for it as well. But I'm going to just choose to give Denver more of the credit than more of the blame to Atlanta because I think Denver is a legit team right now. A legit playoff team. I think they're putting a stranglehold on that last wild card spot, even though they only have like a 1-game lead at this point. But my problem with Atlanta is like it's less the weapons actually and the physicality. I just don't think it's that physical of a football team, both in the defensive line and even the offensive line. And then Kirk is what Kirk is. So I'm going to choose to give Denver credit for just punching him in the mouth and not letting him go at home. And Bo Nix, man, Bo Nix, big time. He's catching Jaden for Rookie of the Year in a hurry.
He is.
All right, here's my take. I think the Saints, the Falcons, the biggest plus for the Saints and the biggest issue for the Falcons, in my mind, is coaching on the offensive front. I won't even talk about Atlanta's defense. I'm going to talk about both sides' offensive. Atlanta has all these weapons, right? You have Kirk Cousins, who obviously isn't playing like prime Kirk, but has had some pretty impressive games at his peak. The games against the Buccaneers specifically. My thing is, he's not very mobile, and your offensive line isn't holding up super well. So I actually disagree about people like Drake London and Bijan. And Bijan's been great the whole year.
Bijan's been great.
Even in terrible games, he's making these ridiculous catches out of the backfield and getting open when I just don't think most people could have success in that scenario, and he's finding a way to do it. That's where I always talk about how people like him and Breece Hall are different because they're just so explosive even when their teams are bad. But Drake London, even when he's open, when they show the replays, even when he's open, Kirk is getting sacked by the time he gets that ball out, or he's trying to roll right and throw the ball, and he's obviously not as mobile as he used to be, so it's not working. So blocking is an issue, and I think part of it is schematically a problem. I don't think your offensive coaching is very good. I believe in Raheem Morris as a coach and leader of men, but I think you need more on the offensive coordinating front to have success with that scenario, and I think that's the issue. Meanwhile, the Saints, I'm not trying to take anything away from Bo Nix. He's playing great. But his life.
Even the Broncos?
Sorry, yes, it's my fault. I was thinking Sean Payton.
Sean Payton.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Sean Payton Broncos, I'm going to call it the Sean Paytons because that's what that team is. You got Bo Nix, who I'm not trying to take anything away from Bo Nix. Everyone knew he was a high completion guy. Nothing Bo Nix is throwing, I'm blown away by. He's throwing the short to intermediate routes perfectly well. He's basically a poor man's Drew Brees with the hopes of getting to a regular man's Drew Brees, I guess, if you will. I think that's the goal for Sean Payton with Bo Nix. It's why he always wanted him. Payton is a genius when it comes to designing an offense in that way. Because if you think about it, the Broncos don't really have true weapons. It's not like Javonte Williams is the best running back. It's not like Courtland Sutton is the best receiver. It's not like they have all these great wide receiver 2s and 3s, and most people can't even name who their tight end is. And yet, he's finding a way every single week to make that team a little bit better and a little bit better. So I guess what I'm really trying to do here is give Sean Payton his flowers because obviously he's been roasted a lot last year with the whole Russell Wilson drama and everything like that. He made us all look bad because that team has looked better every week since he's joined them. And maybe he truly is one of the best coaches we've ever seen. I don't think there's only a handful of guys, maybe the Andy Reids of the world, who can make a team with that few weapons be that effective on offense. And that's just something he does so well with the short and intermediate passing game. It's just consistent. They keep the defense off the field and they drive the ball down the field, and it's a perfect recipe for success. So that's my rant about Sean Payton.
Talk about good coaching. Talk about good coaching relationships. You got Bo Nix and Sean Payton. You also got Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. And the Chargers boys are 8-3, 7-3. They're crushing it. They're winning the late games. And Ev, we'll give you your flowers. We did hit our parlay again. Congratulations, MDS. If you followed our parlay, you probably won yourself some cash. But I did want to bring up that Evan prevented us from picking Cincinnati this week in a close one. They were a money line going to the West Coast. And once again, the Cincinnati Bengals fall behind by 20 points. And then it's Joe Burrow's responsibility to clean it up. Ev, we'll turn the same question that Cy asked me about the Falcons on you. Do you think the Chargers are better than their record shows? Or do you think the Cincinnati Bengals are truly just not that good of a football team?
Yeah, appreciate the shout out. This is one of my best pieces of analysis on football this weekend until it really wasn't in the second half. I was excited to watch the Chargers because I haven't really watched like a full game of theirs this year, so I was excited for that reason. I said at nauseum, I don't think the Bengals are a very good football team. Like Joe Burrow, Chase, Higgins, unbelievable, probably the most unstoppable like offensive trio in the league. But everything else is awful. They're terribly coached. They're just like fundamentally not sound. The defense is horrible. Like Evan McPherson, like, come on, bro. Like he just does not care about his job. Right. And I get it. You're a kicker, but like ever since he was out from the locker room at the Super Bowl watching the halftime show, like after this game, he single-handedly blew them the game. And he was like dapping up Chargers players for like 10 minutes after the game. I'm like, dude, you are a complete joke of a professional. Like, I'm sorry, but like, that's just pathetic. So that's how I feel about the Bengals. The Chargers, I actually might, they're really good, but they looked like the same old Chargers a little bit in this game. Justin Herbert in the first half was unbelievable. I was texting you guys. I'm like, this guy might even be better than Burrow. Like he's like a top like 3-4 guy. Like he's unbelievable. And then in the second half, completely inaccurate. They could not move the ball. They could not run the ball. It was exactly like that Jaguars playoff game from a few years ago where they just did nothing on offense and they completely let the team back in it. It looked exactly the same as that game. The defense is good. The pass rusher is unbelievable. Secondary is really young and got even more hurt in this game, so that's a concern. But I think they're a really good team. But they, I don't know, concerned me quite a bit with that second half, especially on offense where it looked exactly the same like it used to.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that. I'm kind of on the same page as you, Evan. Although the difference is that with the Jim Harbaugh Chargers and the old Chargers, they still won, right? And I think that is a deciding factor for me. Like what I'm saying is, I think they'll take that and they'll go learn from it. Whereas the old Chargers, I think, would take that and then just do it again. They still won the game, and they're 7-3 in Jim Harbaugh's first year. Like, if you told Chargers fans that they're going to be 7-3 in the first year, no one is complaining. I don't care how you do it. Going 7-3, especially with all the guys they traded away or let go this offseason with the salary cap issues and whatever, with signing guys like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, who people were like roasting them for because they were saying they were old. And meanwhile, J.K. has been one of the best running backs in the NFL and is like continues to make like the home run hitting plays when they need it the most. They got like guys like Quentin Johnson, who people had no credit for, and Ladd McConkey, who they drafted this year, playing great, man. Mm-hmm. Like, it's impressive what they're doing out there. I mean, Roman and them get roasted from the Ravens front, but they're playing well, and the defense is way better than they have every right to be, given how much they lost and all the injuries that from the prior years. So I don't know. I can't knock the Chargers. The number one thing I want to point to is I think the Chargers are good. There's so many AFC teams that are going to be so happy if the Bengals don't make the playoffs, because although I agree with you that the Bengals overall are not a complete team, this is the team that, like, if you're like one of the top seeds in the AFC and they were like the last seed to get in, you were so terrified because on any given day, Joe Burrow could throw for like 500 yards and like 5 touchdowns. And all it takes is for you to have one off game and you're going to lose that one. So it's hilarious. I mean, the Bengals they're 4-7, but they played so many good teams to the wire and found a way to lose it. It's really sad, actually, because they're this close in multiple occasions. Both their Ravens games that just happened with the Chargers, I can probably look up a few more where it's happened. It's so sad to see. I feel for Burrow, I feel for Chase, and I feel for Higgins. Like, they're so good, and they don't deserve this. I feel for them. It sucks, man. It's just such a bummer.
Well, speaking of teams that have taken the identity of prior teams like Atlanta and Cincinnati pulling a Los Angeles Chargers this season, I'll even take it a step forward. I think the Dallas Cowboys are the old Commanders because they just look awful. It's like a cycle, right? Okay, TV camera points to sad owner and Jerry Jones just like glaring at the field upset. Then now you have like a quarterback who's not even with his team sitting up in like the comfortable booth, like acting like he's like evaluating every play, just chilling on his massive contract, the biggest contract that they've ever awarded, and he's out for a season-ending injury. And then to make things like the cherry on top is they like there was like a bunch of like roof hardware that fell from the top of the stadium onto the field, which reminds me very similarly of like the sewage water that was dumped on fans in FedEx Field. So I just think that the Cowboys are going to be bad for a long time, and it's very evident to see the frustrations of like CeeDee Lamb and a lot of their like prominent defensive members. Micah Parsons threw like Robert Woods on the ground, like Robert Woods is like turning 45 or 50 next year. And it's just a really, really sad sight. So the Dallas Cowboys are not getting better anytime soon. Ev, it looked like you had a couple comments on that.
I love it. But I think they have the worst run blocking offensive line I think I've ever seen in my life. Like, and Rico Dowdle, I don't want to pick on Rico Dowdle at all because I think he's a solid like backup running back in the league, and I have like no issues with him overall. But he's also probably one of the worst like starting running backs in the league. So their run game is just like Rico was getting hit 2 yards in the backfield every single time they hit it off. And Mike McCarthy was hell bent on running the football in that game. And every single time he was getting hit in the backfield, and McCarthy would just be on the sidelines, just miserable. I pointed my finger up at the Cowboys being bad for a very long time, but the heat is really starting to pick up about Shedeur Sanders and Prime next year and finding a way to get off Dak. I still think it's Las Vegas that will have Shedeur next year, but there's the heat about that and Jerry's boy Prime. It's heating up.
I don't think they're getting off Dak. If we're being realistic here, he's just like the issue with a guy like Dak. He's above average, and he's one of those guys that like has up years and down years. Like last year, he was good. Like up until the playoffs, he was great. Actually, he was one of the top 5 to, especially with all the injuries, quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of statistics and how well they were playing on offense. This will be the last time I talk about the Cowboys for the rest of the season, by the way. So please don't ever waste my time with this trash-ass organization that for the last decade has just been miserable and has found a way to, essentially lose games that they shouldn't be losing in big moments. And now it's just a culmination of all that. I'm so tired of them. I've said this like 8 times on this podcast. I've said it more than that. I'm tired of them getting primetime coverage, and now we're sitting here talking about them giving them more coverage, which they just don't deserve. Like they get enough primetime games, and we have to sit there and be bored out of our minds and waste our like good time watching football. And now we have to sit here and talk about how terrible they are after the fact. I'm just tired of it. Like, just media, stop talking about the Cowboys. This is what they want. They just want to keep being mentioned, what they're good or bad. No, we're done with them. They're not worth it. They're the joke of the NFC East. They're the joke of the NFC, and let's move on. Cooper Rush, props to you, man. I'm sorry you're stuck being the backup in this terrible organization. I don't know what you're supposed to do, but you're a good backup, man. That's all I'm going to say. I'm moving on from the Cowboys. I'm done with
You want to move on, Cy? Okay, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, another prime time matchup. What did I say in the podcast? The Bills were going to slaughter the Chiefs, and that's exactly what they did. Josh Allen ran multiple touchdowns, ran a 30-yard rush right down the middle of the field, just saying, screw you, Spagnuolo. And that's exactly what I called, and that's exactly what happened. The Buffalo Bills destroyed on home territory. And you know what? Patrick Mahomes had the audacity to go up to Josh Allen and say, well, let's do it again in the playoffs. You're going to get smacked again in Buffalo. If they think that there's going to be any different result with all the injuries that have plagued the Kansas City Chiefs, Josh Allen is going to absolutely torch the Kansas City Chiefs the next time he plays them. Buffalo Bills 9-2. Chiefs have their first loss. First of many. I do not forget that bet we made last week, Si.
I'm going to tip the cap to you because you did call this game correct and I was incorrect. So I can't say anything about that. But slaughter is just a ridiculous statement. There was a 1-possession game with like 4 minutes left, and they got the ball back, and it was a 4th and 2, and Josh made a top 2 quarterback in the league play, and I respect him very much for that. But that game was way closer than it should have been, given everything you just alluded to, and it was on the back of the Chiefs making almost another comeback at the end of the game, and this is what makes them daunting because, yeah, we've talked about it plenty. I said it last week. They don't have the best personnel. They just don't. Like, they have the injuries. We already know this. The Bills are a better team right now in the context of how they're positioned. This game was in Buffalo. They won a game, and I'm impressed. But Evan alluded to this prior. They've won plenty in the regular season against the Chiefs. I'm not about to go sit here and be like, oh my gosh, they won a regular season game in the play, like, this year, and now all of a sudden in the playoffs they're like this menacing force. This is what we've seen from the Bills for literally 5 years in a row, and every single year you pick the Bills. So show it to me in the playoffs, and I'll shut my mouth, and you can talk all the smack you want to talk. And they should win the game. Like, let's just be real here. They should win this game. Like, they were favored for a reason. It was in their house. Let's see what happens in the playoffs. The Chiefs are still the number 1 seed, so if they finish out as the number 1 seed and it's at home, we'll see if the Bills can go in Kansas City and beat them in Kansas City, because they couldn't even beat them in Buffalo at home last year, even though Buffalo had the better team last year. They were favored and the Bills beat them in their house. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't need to defend the Chiefs. They're 9-1, bro. I'm not like lost or money. Now, if you're right and they end up like losing a couple more and, they end up going 500 as our bet alluded to, then maybe I'm going to need to take my bait or bite my words, but for right now, I'm perfectly content.
I don't have a ton to add. The Bills are honestly have been a better regular season team over the last 3 years, but like I said, no one cares until it's the playoffs.
That's
true. The Bills are really good. I mean, I just think they deserve a lot of credit for coming off of Diggs and how they retooled this thing. And I think they're probably the second best team in the NFL right now behind Detroit for me. But the Chiefs will get it rolling. They'll get Pacheco back. Hopkins with Mahomes, like the volume. I'm waiting for him to start getting more volume because he's still making some incredible catches like he did in his prime, and I don't have a ton of else to add, but just giving credit to the Bills for really turning this thing around. It's going to be interesting to see if they can steal that 1 seed though, because obviously, like Si said, that's going to matter a lot. And the Chiefs, their division is all of a sudden difficult, so they're going to have some tough divisional games down the stretch. Bills have Miami, but
yeah, keeping in mind they got a lot of crap for the Broncos game because they almost lost it and needed the block kick. But clearly, the Broncos aren't nearly as bad as people were making them out to be after that game, after what they just did to your Falcons. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Should we jump to another blocked kick quickly? Should we jump to another blocked kick just quickly? I know because there's a couple other big games we got to get to, but I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on the Bears playing a great game this weekend, almost beating the Packers and then getting a field goal blocked, which is hilarious because there was a compilation of the Bears being in the same situation like 3 times over the last decade, where they could have tried to get 10 more yards and with 20 seconds left, and they said, no, 45 yards is good. We got this. We're just going to ice it here. We're going to put up a kick, and then they either miss or get it blocked. And the coaches in the press conference afterwards say the exact same thing, which isn't bad logic, honestly, but it's just the fact that it doesn't work out. I don't know. The Bears are just straight comedy. They played really well in this game with the new offensive coordinator. It's just straight comedy, and the fact that it ended the exact same as that Chiefs game last week is just wild. So,
I mean, I'm not going to say it was an encouraging loss, but at the same time, I'm not going to roast them for playing a great game against a good team and losing on an unfortunate kick situation. This is the direction they want to go in. They want to for them to immediately bounce back after all the criticism they got from last week. It's impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they still lost, and I just don't like Caleb Williams. That was the game that solidified it for me. I just don't like this guy at all. I don't like the way he walks. I don't like the way he talks. I don't like the way he carries himself on the sideline, walking around like a prima donna, almost doing a McGregor walk. It's dude, you haven't won the game yet. Your kicker has to go out there, and knowing the kicking history in Chicago, you're due for another double doink. What are you doing celebrating before the game's over? And I also think that the Green Bay Packers, I agree with Si. I think they're going to be a dynasty. I really do. And they barely snuck this victory out. But Jordan Love he is a field general, Ev. And I know he has a lot of interceptions, but he threw 13 for 17 this game. Yeah, he is an incredible player.
He was so efficient and still managed to get a ton of yards. I mean, he does it pretty he does it pretty well. But I can see why Evan's upset, because obviously they haven't been dominant this year or anything, but they'll get there. I believe they're
7-3.
Yeah. Well, they've had some closer games than we'd like. The dominant teams, the ones you get really excited about, are usually winning better fashion. But yeah, they deserve credit for being 7-3.
Yeah.
My issue is the hyperbolic use of the term dynasty. Like,
Well, you're not wrong.
I don't disagree that over the next 5 years, I see them as a consistent playoff contender. Potentially could, if all things go right, push for a chance at a Super Bowl, maybe. Like, but that is not a dynasty. A dynasty is winning like multiple championships over the course of like a 5-year period. And Jordan Love, I disagree. He's like a field general. I actually think he's a gunslinger. Is my
Sorry, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I use the wrong terminology
because he's gonna throw. Like, he's almost like Stafford. Like, Stafford's going to throw like 2 picks a game, but it's because he's pushing the ball downfield like all the time and just trying to take your soul every throw. That's what Love reminds me of. Which
he's more likable than Brett Favre.
Yeah, he honestly he has
Brett
similar
Favre back in the modern NFL, just more likable and not as much a prima donna. But the other thing I will say too is I use the word dynasty too liberally. I agree with you on this one. But that's why it's a hot because the expectation is that I do think that they'll win a Super Bowl or two. But in my mind,
two side
in his career, I think Jordan Love can win 2 Super Bowls. But hear me out. The only reason that I'm a little bit hesitant about that take is you guys know I'm a Mahomes truther. So maybe I'll consider a dynasty in the NFC if you can get to multiple Super Bowls, because nobody beats Mahomes more than once. Let's just be real here. So if they get to the Super Bowl more than one time, I'm going to call it a dynasty, a pseudo dynasty for the NFC. Speaking of young quarterbacks, can we give my boy AR some love, please? He has been getting roasted mercilessly for weeks, and understandably so.
Yeah.
But he put out a dog effort this week. I mean, especially that last drive, but not just that last drive. Some of the throws he made that game, like falling, rolling to the right, and then beyond that, just running secondary players over. I feel so bad for those corners whenever he runs to the outside and he just lowers his shoulder and runs them over. It's like, that's Cam Newton type stuff right there. I mean, it was just like, it was so good to see him have arguably his best game of his career coming off so much scrutiny. I mean, it just renews a lot of like confidence in him, and the locker room was so hyped for him. So that made me really happy.
Yeah, the locker room really does love him, so I agree. And that last touchdown, I mean, that corner, you compared him to Cam Newton, I think AR5 does more damage on the ground from a pulverizing standpoint than Cam Newton does. I mean, that corner like flew off of him like he was like a piece of rice. I mean, it was terrible. And so AR5, I will give you the double clap there. He definitely has the locker room, and that was a great win for the Colts. I mean, the Colts are in this. The Colts are actually in the wild card race. Ev, what do you got?
No, he played a great game. I don't say what I'm about to say in any way to take away from the Colts, because that was a really, really good win. AR was fantastic. So no. But the Jets are a joke. Like, they've completely shut it down. I think there's reports coming out that their players are just like done trying, and they're an absolute mess and dumpster fire. So I do want to mention that as well, but that is in no way to take away from the Colts for a good win, and AR was fantastic. So
you're not wrong. We were 4-point dogs on the road though, so being able to
still a good win.
And the other thing I will say is, like, the Jets they're obviously not good, but they've had close games with good teams, and they've just managed to find a way to lose them. We literally held them to 0 first downs until the last 2 minutes of the first half. So, I mean, we can talk about AR as much as we want, but I want to give our defense some love. And one quick note, our defense has been playing so well recently, but nothing we're doing would matter if Josh Downs was not on our team. Josh Downs might be the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL, because the guy, every single time it's like a 3rd and long or we need a big first down, he always finds a way to get open. And even if you overthrow him, he'll make a diving catch for a guy who's like shorter than all of us. It's truly unbelievable how good he is. I can't believe we got him in the 3rd round. Absolute steal of a pick for us. Josh Downs is that guy.
Yeah, he's big time.
Only other thing I want to mention, guys, is there are 4 big wins from this week. Teams that needed a win, like their life depended on it. It was the Rams getting back on track. It was the Dolphins that now have won 2 in a row, and they're very much in the wild card picture, sadly, because of how bad the AFC is. Let's see here. Who are the other ones? I'm just doing a quick roundtable. The Seahawks beating the 49ers and getting back, stopping that skid, the losing streak. And they're very much back in playoff condition because they could win that division. And then finally, the Houston Texans, looking like the Houston Texans and winning it. That was a big statement win, too. Any thoughts on any of those games?
Yeah, I don't really give Houston any credit for beating Cooper Rush. And there were Nico Collins is back. Yeah, they won by a lot, but like we could take our O offense and our Jacksonville passing offense and go beat that Cowboys team right now. So I don't give Houston a lot of credit, but it was a good win for them. I do think we need to give a quick shout out to the Steelers too. By the way, we didn't mention them.
Yeah, I was saving that. That was probably the biggest win of the weekend.
That's true.
We kind of got to get to picks. We're very long already. But I like fascinated on how you guys shake out those two divisions with the Steelers and Ravens after this weekend's game, and also how you shake out the Seahawks, 49ers, Cardinals after this weekend. So just like a quick take maybe on those two divisions.
I don't know if I can trust the Ravens, man. Like that's my takeaway. Like 1 week they look like the best team in the NFL, and then the next week they lose, and then the next week they have a super close game and end up winning, and then the next week they lose. It's just like I have such a hard time trusting them because they should be winning. I mean, I think they've been favored in pretty much every game they've played so far this year. They should be winning more than they are. I just believe in the Steelers more. I think to consistently win, even though I think the Ravens have a higher ceiling. It's weird though because Lamar has been terrific. I think this is the best Lamar has ever been, and somehow they're managing to not consistently win it. It just makes the AFC that much harder to predict. But honestly, I'm rolling with the Steelers to win the division, bro. I can't take anything away from them. They're winning really good close games against great teams. I can't. How can I knock them for that?
Yeah, their inconsistencies feel worse than last year, right? Because they had these issues last year where they would blow some games. We're like, what is going on here? It feels a little different to me because I think, especially with the defense, is nowhere near as good. The secondary is not good at all, and it doesn't feel like it did last year where they were just beating themselves and just being inconsistent. Like it does feel more systematic to me. I'm still taking Baltimore to win the division, though.
Same here. Baltimore. They're going to figure it out.
I love Pittsburgh, though. I love Pittsburgh.
Picking against Baltimore, I'm shocked I'm doing it, but it's a gut feeling at this point.
I'm done with San Francisco, though. I'm picking Arizona in that division, though. I'm out on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, San Francisco has a big bridge to gap now after that loss, so I don't blame you. But Juwan Jennings, man,
stud, dude,
guy, bro.
Dude,
he's a beast.
He was playing out of his mind. He deserves so much love. I think they need to find a way to come off Debo and then keep Jennings, and then you have him, Pearsall, and Ayuk coming back. Juwan Jennings, absolute stud. That was a great shout out.
I don't think you want Ayuk and Jennings. I think you want Debo and Jennings. I think Debo's been a little bit hurt.
He looks washed, bro.
No, bro,
he's not look good.
He's too young. I mean, he looked amazing literally a couple weeks ago.
I'm out on Debo. I'm out.
Yeah.
How are you? What? That's so disrespectful.
Let Debo be a superstar on another team. He just doesn't really fit in that system anymore.
That is a crazy take, guys. Debo is one of the main reasons they made the Super Bowl last year. I feel like people forget that, but it is what
he just doesn't look the same this year. And I mean, they're clearly Ayuk is their guy. They just paid him, so
I mean, fair enough. But it's just Ayuk and Jennings do the same.
He's way younger. Yeah, I do agree. Jennings is
Debo is your unique guy who is much different than the rest.
I agree, but he just isn't really that anymore. He's just because they don't use him the same way as he's aged, and he doesn't separate like he used to. So now that he doesn't have that gadgetry as much to him, I think at this point you just have your thumpers with Jennings and Ayuk on the outside, and Pearsall is. I'm still not sure what to make of him, but know.
Fair. The last thing I'll say though is I think we're fundamental disagreement is that you guys think Debo is done, maybe of being that caliber player that he used to be. I think he's just hurt, and that he will be that again. But we'll move on. We'll see. We'll see.
I think we're good. We got to get picks unless you guys got anything else.
I don't have any credibility anymore when it comes to the NFC West throughout the season, and we're only through week 12. I've actually picked all 4 teams at different times to win the division. So I'm going to take a shot in the dark. I think Seattle's going to get it done, but that's the last time I have any credible remark in this division.
That is a take, man.
Seattle's still not for me, but you love Seattle, so I respect you going back to that horse. But
look, I'm respecting him for going all 4 teams.
That was a hilarious statement, man. I give so much props for him calling himself out on that. That's so funny.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's do it. Week 12. The standings are tightening. This is one of my best betting weeks, 10-4, with some solid picks of Denver and the Chargers. So I won the week. Zach was 9-5. Cy was 8-6. So Cy's lead over Zach is down to 3 and 7 over me. So it's getting tight, boys. And as Zach mentioned earlier, another parlay hit this week. So if you've been tailing Seams Media since week 3 after that rough start, you're paying out pretty good. But Thursday night football will start with Pittsburgh at Cleveland. Pittsburgh is a 3.5-point favorite on the road. Over-under is a meager 36.5. I think this is too low. I got Pittsburgh winning and covering, even in a weird divisional short week game. Zach?
Same with me. They're trying to do the whole divisional matchup play, and it is in the dog pound. But the Steelers I think they're going to win this game comfortably. They played so many close games lately. This is the one where they actually beat the doors down and win pretty handedly.
Yeah, this feels kind of disrespectful to the Steelers, but I think the number one reason is it's a Thursday night game, and short weeks, especially in divisional matchups, always tend to lead to closer results than we think. But I still think the Steelers will cover because I just think they're definitively a better team. So I agree.
Yep, agreed. Next game, Dallas at Washington. Washington is a 10.5-point favorite at home, which is insane to see against the Cowboys. Over-under is 45.5. Let's start with Zach.
I'm going to go Commanders win and cover.
Cy?
We could win and cover against the Cowboys.
I have no cover just until the Commanders look a little better on offense and divisional game, But yeah, the Cowboys look pretty rough. So Tampa Bay at the Giants. Tommy DeVito is back at the helm as the Giants tank is fully on. Tampa Bay is a 5.5-point favorite on the road. Over-under is 41.5. Let's start with Cy.
I'll go Tampa win and cover.
I have no cover. I think the Giants have some juice with DeVito or keep it close. Zach?
Give me Tampa Bay wins, but no cover as well, Evan.
All right. Chiefs at Panthers. Chiefs are 10.5-point favorites on the road. Over-under is 42.5. I have no cover, but, I don't know. Zach?
Panthers money line. I'm not even kidding. I'm telling you. I exposed last week on the podcast that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to start to lose, and they're going to start getting exposed, and you're going to see it in Carolina on Sunday afternoon. Mark my words. Carolina wins this game outright.
What's the spread, Evan?
10.5.
This is just sad. This is so sad. Chiefs winning. I have no comment. Chiefs winning cover. Because I am going to put that on not just MDS and put that on every social media I have. So everyone, they look forward to this.
I hope it turns out to be true, but New England at Miami. Miami's a 7-point favorite at home. Over-under is 45.5. I think it's a little light. I'll say Miami wins and covers. Zach?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because the Patriots have impressed me with Drake May, but I think that the Dolphins are just going to continue to accelerate forward. Plus, they're playing at home. Give me Dolphins win and cover.
I'm sorry, what was the spread again?
-7 for Miami.
Yeah, I'm going to Miami win and cover. I've been on the Miami train for a few weeks now. So
their defense is playing great. That's key.
Agreed.
Tennessee at Houston. Houston is an 8-point favorite at home. Over-under is 41.5. Let's go to Zach.
I found arbitrage, fellas, and it's betting against Will Levis and the Chambly Titans. Texans win and cover. They're starting to get a little bit more healthy, and their defensive line is a unit. Texas win and cover.
Cy?
Didn't Tennessee cover last week?
No.
Oh, did it not? Okay. But either way, I'm not going to go cover just because of the divisional situation. I need to see what the Texans do against, a team other than the Cowboys. So I'm going to wait a week. But I'll say Texans.
Yeah, we have a couple trends battling here with the Houston on a short week, but the Titans just – oh, no, they didn't play the Lions. Never mind, I take it back. Levis played actually pretty well, but Houston win and cover. Detroit at Indianapolis. Detroit's a 7-point favorite on the road after just absolutely mauling the Jaguars with just a ridiculous performance. They made them look like a college team. Over-under is 49.5. I'll say Detroit wins and covers. Zach?
Detroit wins and covers. Please, Cy. Detroit wins and covers.
I'm not letting you bet against my team. Are you joking? Especially after your Carolina pick? No, I'm going Indy money line. You can have a pick back. Just because you got a Carolina ridiculous one.
You guys are each donating one to me. This is going to get really tight. I'm just kidding. It'll give me a close game. Minnesota at Chicago. Minnesota's a 3.5-point favorite on the road. Over-under is 39.5. Let's start with Cy.
You said 4.5 in Minnesota?
3.5.
3.5. Okay, I'll go Minnesota win and cover. They look better.
I have Chicago money line. Minnesota's still trending down a little bit. They still didn't play amazing against the Tennessee Titans. Really low over-under. I'm guessing some cold weather here in Chicago. Give me the Bears to pull out a win. Zach?
Give me the Bears to win this game as well, outright. Chicago money line.
I'm actually itching to pick Chicago to win this one, but I'm actually now glad I didn't.
Yeah, respect.
Well, so I was the only one that was backing Chicago up this whole podcast, and then now Evan and I are going after them.
I don't think me not picking Chicago means I'm saying Chicago's bad. I'm picking one of the better teams in the NFC, man.
No, I'm not saying that as a critique. I'm actually critiquing Evan and I because we are bashing the Bears, and then we're now like the stronghold against an 8-2 visiting team.
You're right. This is a
I've been a little up and down on the Bears. Yeah, it's been a tough team for me, so fair critique. Denver at Las Vegas. Denver is a 5.5-point favorite on the road. Over under is 41.5. Let's start with Zach.
More arbitrage. Bet against the Raiders, who are also tanking. The Broncos are playing great. I see them jumping out really early. Give me the Broncos win and cover.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't even need to know what the spread is. I'm picking whatever team's playing against the Raiders. I said that last week.
Yeah, I got Denver winning cover. I think the strategy this year for betting is pretty simple. Just bet covers against the worst teams in the NFL. The Raiders, the Titans, the Jaguars. It's what we've been doing, and it pays. This is an interesting game. San Francisco at Green Bay. Green Bay is a 2.5-point favorite at home. Pretty light. Over-under is 47.5. I have Green Bay win and cover. I actually like this one quite a bit. I'm just not impressed with San Francisco lately. And, I don't think these are even teams as the spread indicates. So, Zach?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs has been a key for Green Bay hitting that next level. I'm going to go Green Bay win and cover in Lambeau Field. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. This is a hard one for me, man. Oh, my gosh. I don't know who to pick. I'll go Green Bay win and cover, but I don't feel great about it because I definitely think San Francisco will win this game.
All right, next game, another good game here at 425. Arizona at Seattle, big divisional game. Seattle's actually a 1-point favorite at home coming off that big win with San Francisco. Arizona coming off the buys we talked about earlier. Over-under is 47.5. Let's start with Cy.
I'm going to go Arizona win this one.
I have Arizona money line as well, given the bye week. Zach?
Give me Arizona money line, despite the fact that I just picked the Seattle Seahawks to win the division.
What are you doing?
At home, this is literally in Seattle too. This makes no sense. But hey, I gave Kyler his props.
We started this podcast giving props to Kyler on a bye week when he didn't even play, and then now you pick the Seahawks to win the division, and then you go back to the Cardinals. You're so confusing, man.
Dude. The NFC West has confused me so much, man. I don't even know anymore. Give me Arizona.
Your mind is in a pretzel with this division, and I love it,
bro.
Eagles at Rams is Sunday Night Football. The Eagles are 3-point favorites on the road. Over-under is 48.5. I like the Eagles to win and cover. I just think they're going to be way more physical than the Rams. So I kind of like this spread. Zach?
Completely agree.
Yeah, I got to pick the Eagles. The Rams will look good. I'm going to pick the Eagles.
Yeah. Monday Night Football is a really, really good one. Baltimore at the Chargers. Back-to-back primetime games for the Chargers. Baltimore is a 3-point favorite on the road. Over-under is 50.5. Let's start with Zach.
Ravens win and cover this game. This is where the Chargers finally get exposed by a big boy football team.
Cy?
I love Herbert and the Chargers, but I got to pick the Ravens to win and cover just because I feel like the ebb and flow of the Ravens, they'll find a way to put up a big game this week.
Yeah, I feel like I've gone to a place of just default taking Baltimore to win and cover, and I'm trying to break that because of how bad they've looked. So I am going to say they win. I'm going to say it's really, really close, and I'm going to say no cover. I'm going to take those 3 points with the thinking that the Chargers could easily win this outright. So that's all we got, boys. We got 6 bye weeks, a huge bye week slate, unfortunately. So just 13 games or whatever on the slate, but that's it. What else we got?
Evan, you're not going to be able to sleep at night knowing that the Z in Seams is coming back from the dark wedges of 11th place. I went from 11th to 9th, 9th to 8th, 8th to 7th. I'm on the periphery of breaking into the top 6. Evan sits there at 6 and 5. I think he's 4 seed, but 4, 5, and 6 seeds are all 6 and 5. So, hey man, just when you go to sleep tonight, just know that I'm right behind the 6 and 5 teams, and I'm ready to make a splash in the playoffs.
Hey, I totally support you making the playoffs. Evmar guarantees that team will be in the playoffs. It's a solid team. I've got a solid lead. That team's not going anywhere outside of the top 6, but hey, that doesn't mean you can't steal one of the other spots. So all the power to you.
It must be fun trying to fight for a playoff spot, Zach. I haven't had to worry about that in like 5 years.
That's hey, you know what? I teed you up for that flex side. That's very true. You know what?
I had to roast you one time. Yeah.
I'm coming for Brian and Colin. I do agree with Evan. Evan's team is going to be pretty hard to touch. But
Evan's got a good team, especially.
I don't even know if Brian's going to set his lineup because he's up in DC for work. So I'm really banking on him not doing that. Jamar Chase is in the wide receiver slot with a complete bye right now.
I need some trades. So shout out to anyone that's in our league that is watching this an hour and 10 in. Can you hit me up and help me get some trades going? I need a little bit of help, but yeah, it seems in good shape. We'll talk. Yeah, I need a wide receiver upgrade.
Got a little 3-way teams trade. That'd be fun.
I love it. The other item I wanted to mention in Cy, I know we're going to get into more baseball here. So for any baseball fans out there, the plan is to get a free agency predictions episode sometime next week. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe before or after the holiday, and then I think once the baseball season starts, just kind of weekly episodes of a similar cadence. With the two of us, Zach, you're welcome anytime. I know baseball is less your focus, but if there's anything, go Birds. So. So we'll mention that, and then Cy, if you got maybe by this time next week, Juan Soto will be a Met. What do you think?
Do not get me. I need to sleep tonight. Don't get me all riled up before bedtime. I hope you're right, but I'll save it for our predictions episode because I think it's gonna be really fun. Zach, you can join us. If you don't, I strongly encourage you to watch because Evan and I have been yapping for the last 2 weeks about this. I'm so excited. We're really looking forward to it. So leave it at that. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mondays Down South.